They say Pine Hollow is never meant to be disturbed, that the hills themselves whisper warnings when someone gets too close. But I didn't believe any of that. Not until the night the ground started breathing beneath my feet. It was late, sometime after 1 in the morning. I had just finished a grueling night shift in Breathitt and, against my better judgment, decided to take the shortcut home through Pine Hollow Road. Now, the locals, they avoided it like the plague. The stories say an old coal shaft runs right under that stretch of road. One that collapsed back in the 1930s, burying every single miner alive. Some old-timers claimed you could still hear the machines churning away down there, ghosts working their eternal shift. Others swore they saw strange lights glowing under the ground on foggy nights. But me, I didn't believe in ghost stories, not back then. The first sign that something was seriously wrong came about 3 miles in. The fog rolled in so thick it felt like I was driving into a wall of cotton, completely swallowing my headlights. At the same time, my radio, which had been playing fine all night, suddenly crackled into a storm of static. I hit the dial, scanning through the stations, but it didn't matter. It was just static, and underneath it, a low, faint hum. At first, I thought it was just feedback from the speakers, but the sound wasn't coming from inside the truck. It was coming from outside, from the ground itself. The sound was deep, like a massive old generator rumbling somewhere far underground. It was steady, rhythmic, almost like a slow, heavy pulse. I slowed the truck to a crawl, rolled the window down, and leaned my head out into the soupy air. That's when I noticed it. The road ahead was trembling, just slightly, like something massive was stirring beneath it. I pulled over, killed the engine, and stepped out. The night air was colder than it should have been, thick with the metallic smell of iron and damp, freshly turned earth. The forest around me was dead quiet, and I mean absolutely silent. Not a single cricket, not the rustle of a leaf. The silence was so profound it was almost deafening. And then I heard it, a whisper. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but the trees were perfectly still. This sound wasn't moving through the trees. It was coming from the dirt beneath my boots. Driven by a morbid curiosity I now deeply regret, I crouched down and pressed my hand flat against the gravel road, and then I froze. The earth was pulsing, faint but steady, like the heartbeat of something enormous, sleeping just below the surface. The whisper grew louder. It wasn't one voice, it was dozens of them, all overlapping, murmuring, pleading. I couldn't make out the words, just a jumble of desperate sounds. And then one voice rose above the rest, low, harsh, and unmistakably clear. It said my name. Every single hair on my neck stood on end. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. I stumbled backward toward the truck, my heart pounding in my chest, and that's when the ground split open right behind me. A deep crack tore through the gravel with a sound like a giant bone breaking. A rush of cold air blasted out from the fissure, and with it, a gut-wrenching smell of rusted metal and decay. Something moved down there, something big, and then a hand came out. It was blackened, caked in what looked like coal dust, but the fingers were impossibly long, the joints sharp and angular, like a spider's legs. Another hand followed, gripping the edge of the crack, and then a face started to emerge, pale, stretched, and with 2 hollow eye sockets. that seemed to drink the light. And deep within those empty sockets, two faint red points of light glowed in the fog. It opened its mouth, a black void in that pale face, and the collective whisper came again. But this time, I heard it clearly. Put one single, chilling phrase. You shouldn't have stopped. I ran. I didn't look back. Didn't dare to. I jumped into the truck, slammed the door, and fumbled with the key. The engine sputtered once, twice, and finally roared to life. I slammed the gear into drive and floored it, gravel and dirt flying from the tires. For a brief, blissful moment, I thought I was safe. I was getting away. But then I glanced in the rearview mirror. Something shifted under the tarp in the back of my truck. I just caught a glimpse, blackened, skeletal fingers curling over the edge of the truck bed before disappearing back under the canvas. I slammed on the brakes, the truck skidding sideways, but when I looked again, it was gone. There was no sound, nothing. That deep, vibrating hum again, louder than before, resonating through the very metal of the cab. I didn't stop again. I drove like a madman until I hit the main road. By the time I reached the bright, comforting lights of the highway, everything was quiet again. The hum was gone. The fog had lifted. I pulled over, my whole body shaking, just trying to breathe. Trying to convince myself it was all just exhaustion, a waking nightmare, a trick of the fog in my tired mind. But then I checked the clock on the dashboard. It was 3:33 a.m. I'd left work just after 1. That drive should have taken 30 minutes, 40 tops. Somehow, 2 hours had completely vanished. As I sat there, trying to process the impossible, my phone rang, its screen glowing with an unknown number. Against every instinct screaming at me to ignore it, I answered. Static hissed on the line, and then that same low, harsh voice whispered right into my ear. You brought it with you. The call ended. I dropped the phone and stared, trembling, into the rearview mirror. And my reflection, it didn't move. It just stared back at me, its eyes glowing with that same faint, hellish red light I'd seen in the hollow. No, every night around that same time, I hear it again, that deep subterranean hum, faint at first, then rising from the ground outside my house. And sometimes, when I wake up in the morning, there's dirt on the floor, just a few small piles of it, leading from the back door right to the side of my bed. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a story you think is stranger than this one, share it in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more Tales from the Shadows. Stay safe out there.